Hey everybody, this is William Beam from the Aperture vs. Lightroom blog. Today we're going to take a look at Lightroom's book module. If you've stayed with me for the past few posts, you know that we took a look at Aperture's books and went through 3 videos on that. Lightroom is probably going to go only through 2 videos. There's a little bit less as far as what we were dealing with geodata or any kind of geographic information or maps. That's not inside of Lightroom, but there is a ton of stuff here for the books. It's a very full-featured system. It's, in my opinion, it's equivalent of what I saw in Aperture. In some places a little bit better, some places a little bit different, but I think anybody who's working with Lightroom books will be very pleased with the capabilities they have. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and bring up Lightroom. And I'll start off with the same advice that I gave for Aperture users. Before you want to go into the book module, build yourself a collection with the photos that you want, because you're going to have a little film strip down here at the bottom that's going to be the photos you choose to go inside of your book, and you don't want to have to look through everything in your catalog to pick and choose which ones are going to be the ones that go in the book. So take a little time, do a little planning of what photos are going to be in there, make them your picks, your finished versions. In this case, I just grabbed a number of HDR images that I've got. I put them in a collection called Finished. And doesn't mean that everything in here is going to go into the book. I might lay a couple of them out and see if I like one better than the other. So, for example, like this photo, I've got a horizontal and a portrait. Depending on how it looks, I may choose one or the other. But I'm not going to put both of them in there. So, with that in mind, make a collection, prepare yourself a little bit, and then let's jump into the book module. Before I get started with all these features over here on the side, I'm going to take a look on the menu, and only when you're in the book module will you see a menu item for book. And what I'll suggest is you start off looking at book preferences. Very simple. You've got a couple of choices: zoom to fill or zoom to fit. And I'll show you examples of that, but basically fill will take your entire photo and put it in there, but it may not match the layout of the page that you have. So you may have some white space above or below for the entire photo to fill in there. And zoom to fit will exactly fit the photo within this page, so everything takes up the space and you don't have anything else hanging around. The autofill options, if you want, you can start off with what we're seeing here. This is your front and back cover, and these are going to be like the pages inside. You can add to them, and this will be the inside of the back page. So for example, this would be the inside of your front cover, the first page that you see, and then this would be the back page and the inside of the back cover. If you want to start off by autofilling, you can check that box, and all the photos in your film strip will get thrown in there, laid out for you, and you can then kind of manipulate them as you want, or if you prefer, turn that off, and you can do it one at a time, just kind of building your pages as you go and choosing the photos you want. There are pros and cons for each way of doing it. In Aperture, I think it was a little bit messy. Here, you've got a little bit more control over what kind of layout you have when it doesn't autofill, and we'll take a look at that. On text boxes, you've got a couple of choices there. Filler text would be like a lorem ipsum text. It'll just go ahead and put that in there as a placeholder for you to see how it looks for a layout without having to type in the text box. Or you can use some metadata that's already associated with your photos. And constrain captions to text-safe area. When we start looking at our cells, let me just give you a little example right here. I'm sorry, I'll pull up the guides. This checkbox over here for text-safe area, if you look at this little gray line right inside, when I turn that on and off, that area just demarks, and let's bring this up a little bit closer so it's a little easier to see. So this little line right over here is your text safe area. Anything out of here is not going to print for your text. So the reason I had that showing up as far as our book preferences is to constrain with that. You need to stay within there anyway, so why not let the program do a little bit of the work for you. So once those preferences are set, you can come down here to the bottom, and these are just 3 layout views. This one will show you all of your pages that you've got from front to back, and as you add more pages, it'll scroll up and down. If you want, you can select a page here and look at 2 pages facing in your left and right page, or you can simply look at one page only and work with it that way. So we'll start off with a grid. Let's take a look at the book settings. All right, for the book, by default is going to be Blurb. That is the company that's partnered with Adobe to print the books out. And you have two other options over here. You can go ahead and create a PDF file or a JPEG. So if you're looking to print books out, Blurb is your option. They do a great job. In a future post, I'm going to go ahead and order some of these books, and I'll do a review comparing Lightroom's books from Blurb and also Apple's print. I think both users are going to be happy with the results that they get, though. And once you've got Blurb selected, you can see some of these settings change depending upon which book you do. So you go to JPEG and PDF, you get a different set of choices than if you use Blurb. So I think most people are probably looking at printing off with Blurb, so we're going to stick with that. The size, you've got a couple of different sizes here. You've got a very small 7 by 7 inch square, a standard portrait, which is 8 by 10, or landscape, 10 by 8, depending on which orientation you want, tall or wide. And then you can go larger. You've got a large landscape or a large square. Creative choices, it's all up to you. For this one, I'm just going to stick with standard landscape at a 10 by 8. Your cover, you've got a few choices here. Soft covers by default, hard cover with a dust jacket, or hard cover with an image wrap. And depending upon what you choose, you'll notice the estimated price down here changes. So $36.71, we haven't even put any photos in there at all yet. So go back down here to soft cover, and you can save quite a bit of money, but again, it depends upon what you want, either for yourself to keep or to share with someone else. The paper types, you've got some wonderful choices down here. Standard is going to be the least expensive paper type that you can have. You can see how it drops the price down. However, it's also going to be the lowest quality that you're going to get. As far as quality, you've got the Pro Line and Premium Luster. I kind of like Premium Luster myself. I haven't tried the Pro Line series myself yet. One of the things that you may want to do is order a swatch. You can actually get samples of the paper from Blurb. And in order to do that, you can click this button down here called Learn More. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that. And that'll bring up their webpage. And you can see this will tell you more about what you're going to get from Blurb overall. And if you want to order a swatch, right down here, order a swatch kit, click on that. And it's that simple. So you can check out and see, here's an example of what you get. You can check out and see what the different types of paper look like, how they feel, and that may give you a choice for what you want to do. Another possibility is you may want to do a small sample book before you start working on big projects, because it would really stink if you put all this time and effort into this thing and then you order something and you get it back, you've spent your money, and you find out, that's not exactly what I wanted. Go ahead and practice, order a small square. It's inexpensive, and you can tell it'll change your size and layout things whenever you change these different types. But for about $13 just to try it out, adding a few pages will change the cost, but that's reasonable to do, at least in my opinion. So let's go back to the standard landscape, change the size and layout. One other thing that you want to pay attention to is this logo page. You can see here on the back inside page, there's a small logo here. It is basically letting folks know that this book was printed by Blurb. If you leave that on, you get, click the right thing. You can see where it says price discounted. If you don't want that on there, for example, you're creating a book for clients and you don't want Blurb's brand on there, you click none, and you can see the price just shot up about $5. And as the cost of your book goes up, so does the estimated price. You're seeing a significant discount in terms of percentage by having that logo page on there, probably about 20%. So it might not be a bad idea, if this is just for yourself, to leave this on. It's not like they're putting a watermark over your photos or anything like that. It's just a little logo at the back of the page telling folks who did this. All right, so with that in mind, this is what I was talking about with auto layout. And we can click a button here and do auto layout. Before we do that, let me just show you these presets. You notice it says 1 photo per page. So let's click auto layout, and right away every photo that I had in my film strip over here was thrown in. 182 pages. That's extremely large for a photo book. So I told you I wasn't going to put in every image that I had, and that's part of the reason why. Let's go back up here to book settings, and you can see my estimated price has gone up from about 20 bucks or so to $52. The more pages you have, the more you spend. All right, let's close this down. We know we're going to be spending some money on this. So on the auto layout, by default, we were talking about one photo per page. You can open this up. There are a couple of different settings here. Left is a blank page, right is one photo and a caption, and then there's the same thing without a caption. The default that we were using here was one photo per page, is what you're seeing right here. You can also edit your layout preset. Let me give you a couple of examples of things you can do here. And we're going to select, well, we'll start over here with this photo. And click this little button down here, and you'll see how you can modify the page. You've got if you got favorites that are marked, you can keep a list of them right there. So if you go to the same type of layout over and over again, it's a nice, easy way to do it. For one photo, you've got all these different types of layouts. So for example, you may have a portrait you want. There's various options of a landscape. These items here with, if you can see them, there's little lines going there. Those would be text boxes or captions where you can enter some text to go with your photographs. And as you can see, there are a plethora of layouts. You can use white space. You can use the same kind of thing with text. This little circle you're seeing over here, that would be in case you want to mark this as one of your favorites. So we'll just keep on going down the list and give you a chance to see some of those. You want to put a film strip in there, a small square with a lot of text. Plenty of options to do things. And in a future video, we'll look at how we can modify some of these. Same thing on down the line. You have a number of selections for 2, 3 photos for multiple photos. If you really want to put in a grid of things, for example, maybe you've done a series of portraits and you just want to show a range of expressions or styles. This is kind of an interesting one, just little thumbnails all over the place. Maybe use that as a chapter heading or a lead-in to show what's going to be in the following pages. 2-page spreads. If you want to go ahead and make a landscape, you can do so. It can be full bleed. You can have a little bit of a border around it. And as you can see, there are different options for where you have some white space, some background, just areas to kind of knock these things out. And you can also have like a large panel that's going right here, and then maybe a smaller piece that shows a little detail or something. Text pages are just what you'd expect. They're pages just to have some written. The clean style would be more of kind of a fine art type. And I should mention that when we get down to these settings over here from clean on down, these are still the same ones that you would have in the 1 photo, 2 photo, and so forth. They're just organized differently. It's not that you have different options under clean. For example, this one over here would also show up in the 1 photo page. Just again, a number of options that you can have depending on how you want to lay out your photos. Creative, as we zoom in, you can probably tell a little bit that there's a bit of a border on this, so let's choose this option, and then I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this page, and you can see that it's put kind of a frame or a border around. And if you wanted to add some page text, you can click here and say Times Square, for example, and we'll get a little bit more into how to manipulate the text later on. So let me go back out here. So with our page layout options, again, plenty of choices, plenty of different ways to present your images. And as I said, we can even manipulate these things a little bit further if you want to. So enough of that. I'm going to go ahead and clear this layout, and we're going to start all over again. And if you decide that you want to do this manually, these little gray boxes over here with a plus sign on them, those are the places where you can drop a photo. So in this case, we see this is going to be my front cover, this is going to be the back cover, and I'll come down here and just pick, let's try this one. We'll just drop that up there and say that's going to be the front cover that I've got. It's very simple, drop it over here. On this one, let's say that I don't want it to be a 1 page, or excuse me, a 1 photo per page as it's showing, on our auto layout. I'm going to drop it down here and go for 2 photos. I don't necessarily want text. Let me see if I can't find. something like this. And bear with me, I'm just going to kind of scroll through here and see if I can find a couple of images that may work with. I'm going to take this one and drop it there. And the sad part is I need to raise the size of this. I can't hardly see what some of these images are. But I know that I'm looking for another NASA image, and I've got one here at the very end. So I'm going to drop that in. Let's go ahead and bring this up. In case you're wondering what this is the Apollo Launch Center. And this little funky looking thing, if you've ever watched the space shuttle when it used to sit on the launch pad and there was a cone that came down, you know, kind of snuggled over the top of the shuttle, well, that's what the cone looks like from the bottom side. I'm going to close the auto layout button and I'm going to open up the page. If you want to number it, you can just click this little checkbox and you've got a couple of options. Right off the bat, you can see a number right there in the corner, so it's showing bottom corner. You can choose top corner if you like it on the sides. If you like it centered, you've got a choice between top, side over here, and then bottom. And of course, you don't have to have any numbers at all. If you want to add another page, just click Add a Page. There you go. I've got something right here. We can choose that style as well. Make that one photo, and let's go down the bottom here and get one with those ugly looking little borders. And in this case, I'll bring something a little Disney-fied over here. So we've got those choices on the page numbers. It's easy to add pages. If you want to get rid of one, you can just simply select it and hit Control, and you'll see where you can also add pages or a blank page. You can copy the layout if you want to and use it someplace else. You can save this as a custom page, or you can just go ahead and remove the page. All right, why would you want to save something as a custom page? Right now, this is a default page. We haven't done anything with it. However, you can manipulate these settings a little bit to show the image the way you want. If you see how my cursor is changing when I get close to the border, it doesn't happen on the outside. If you go inside the border, you can see how the cursor changes a little bit, and that means that you can kind of drag this in and out. You may not want to do this with a bordered photograph. Let's come over here to this one and choose this. And notice how the photo starts cropping in at a certain point, and everything is going together, you know, both sides, top and bottom. By default, everything works that way. What you can do is come over here to the cell. You see this padding going on in here? That's just showing the same thing that we were doing manually. What you really want to do is, it's hard to see, but there's a little black triangle here. Why it isn't a little easier to find, I don't know, but that will show you this part where you've got the left, right, top, and bottom, and this little white inside the square box shows that they're all linked. If you check that box, you're unlinking the cell. Now, when you come over here, or we can do it from this side, let's just move these sliders, you can start changing the width that we've got over here, and you can see how many points that you're doing, and the same thing on the right. So if you want to make this a box, we can move this in, let's say 14 points there, if I can get close to 14 points there. I'm not exactly precise with this little slider, but at least you can hopefully see the concept of what I'm trying to do. Is like you can start manipulating these things individually. So let's say that I want to make this a bit of a box photo rather than doing a horrible job at it too, aren't I? So I can zoom in a little bit. I can move my photo around. Not exactly a pretty layout, but the idea was at least to show the concept. You can change these layouts the way you want to. You can do one photo, two photos per pages. You can change the size of them. If we want to make this a bit bigger, let's see if can I grab that? No. So I'm stuck with the size that I've got from there. But if you want to make again, that image is probably not the best one to do for a pano. But let's say that I wanted to bring this down. zoom that in. There, that fills that up. Sorry, I was having a little bit of a fit here trying to figure out exactly what I was doing wrong. This zoom will bring you in and out so you can see more detail in there. But something you want to pay attention to is if you get a little too far, you can see this little exclamation mark right over here. What that's telling you is when I've reached 84% or thereabouts, the resolution of the photograph is no longer sufficient for print. It's not going to give you a nice sharp image in there. So you back that off a little bit until it goes away. This is not the scene that you want to have, but you know, at least it is sharp enough or it has enough resolution for print. So anyways, we'll take this back, and that's going to be my sort of panorama image that goes along in this book. Now, if I want to, and I can save that page layout, and that's going to be something that when we go back to page now, let's say that we go over and add a page. That might help if I backed up a little bit. Now when we see with custom pages, there's the layout that I just created. So you've got all your 1 photo, 2 photo, 3 photos, and so forth. And any layouts that you create will show up in there. And those will stay. It's not just for this book project. So if you've got a layout that you like and you create it with another book project, then you're good to go. Let's take a look at some of the text that you can add to your photo book right now. And in this section, I think it is a little bit weaker than what you have in Aperture, but you've still got a couple of options here. Under the text menu, you'll see that there's a section for photo text and a section for page text. I'm going to select the photo and I'm going to zoom a little bit out. And this is going to show you just a little bit of the difference of what we're talking about. If I click on the photograph, select photo text, you can see this little box over here. And I'm just going to put in Run Forest Run because this is the plantation where they filmed Forrest Gump running all the time. And so you can see we've got little custom text. You can put in a caption of the photo. You've got other metadata that you could put in there, and your offset is going to let you kind of say where is that going to be. But you don't have a lot of options going on here. So it can be above your photo, over your photo, so that's going to be somewhere, you know, on the photo itself, and below the photo. Not very exciting, but that's what you got. And you can align this with photo or not. So your page text, on the other hand, let's click on the page itself, and then we can turn this on. And of course, you can see the difference right here. That's associated with a page, not associated with a photo. Subtle difference, big difference, it depends upon your point of view. We can put down I have a new, if I can spell properly. So again, the offset gives you a little bit of room. And you're essentially looking at, is it going to be at the top or is it the bottom? You can move it over the photograph, basically, you know, throughout the page. It's not a lot. And if you want to add more, you can hear that sound. That's me hitting the enter key and screwing up. If you want to add a little bit more in here, you can. So you can make paragraphs in here. Now you may be thinking this text just looks incredibly ugly. It is. You come over here with the type menu and you can see you've got choices to make whatever type that you want. You can change the color of it. So for example, white might be a better color to put on if you're going to put it over the photo. If you need to change the color even further, you can grab your picker and slide this up and down, and you can see we can make every garish color in the rainbow, and maybe even then some. But let's go back to black for a moment. Under the type settings, you've got a number of options. So for example, let's go back up to Helvetica and choose that as our type. Once you've done, you can look underneath, see if you've got more options. You may want it bold, light, italic. because it's even more text. Again, the size, 18 points is pretty big. That would go over there. You might want to bring this down. And notice that it's only affecting the part that I've got selected, not necessarily the entire box. So if I really want this to affect everything, I've got to select all of that text. And the reason this blanked out is because there are two different typefaces that are going on here. So let's make those all the same. And we'll make those all just regular for right now. And this one over here is the photo text, so that's separate than what we're seeing on this side. At least I believe it was. Sometimes I get doing this and I'm a little confused myself. You can change the opacity, so as you can see it's starting to fade out a little bit. And you can change the tracking. Well, if you watch the text, and the tracking just kind of makes it grow out a little bit more, spaces it a little further. And that is all the way out. Bring that back. The baseline. You can see where the baseline is setting, exactly where it is in relationship to where the image started. Where the text box started. Leading, as you can see by this example, I know it looks ugly, but that's kind of the point. You see the spacing in between each line. That's what your leading is controlling. You don't want to give it too much, but if you want to give it a little bit more gap between the lines, you can control that with your leading. And I just kind of go with auto leading because the people who program this have much more skill at type than I do. You can choose columns over here. You can center it, justify it left or right. You can move it up, down, or bottom within the frame that you have there. I'm going to leave that alone. One of the things I like, though, is the fact that if you look at this list, you have just a wonderful array of fonts, probably more than most people are going to need. But Adobe has some great typefaces, and I'm sure you should be able to find something over here that would be fitting for whatever image you've got. And it's looking at kind of the same way that Aperture does. It's looking at all the fonts that you've got in your system. It's not using Apple's own type picker, which I kind of would have preferred, but since Lightroom has to work both with Mac and Windows platform, it makes sense that they created their own system because Windows users wouldn't be able to choose Apple's type. This font over here that I've got, Motel King, it's just really one of those ugly ones that I found online somewhere, and it made sense for a project I was working on. It doesn't make sense for much of anything else. But that's kind of like an example of how I know it's looking at all the fonts on my system. That's not one that Adobe provides with its products. That's just something that I've got. And the same thing with that garish Las Vegas Jerome. But if you're looking for something nice, it's hard to go wrong with Helvetica. And that gives you an example of how you can put type over here. I'd like it better if you could see how to manipulate these boxes a little bit more. You can see this box, it is what it is. I can grab it up and down, but I can't, or at least not that I've seen, I cannot change this box. So for example, if I wanted to make it a box just over on one side or the other, it's really not letting me do it. And that's where I'd have to go back to one of the page layouts. And let's choose text page. I've got a photograph over here. So this little box is something that they programmed in. And I'm going to turn off my page text. And now I can type in there, and I've got access to all the same type commands that we were just using on the text for the page text and photo text. It's just in a more pleasing format than putting down run Forest run. So if there is a way to change the size of this, I am just missing it because I've looked, grabbed all around trying to find a handle, but I'm not seeing it. So if you find it, let me know in the comments because I'm just having a hell of a time trying to get there. The last feature I wanted to look at is the background, and let's bring this over. So first thing you want to look at is this checkbox up here. It says apply background globally. If you leave that on and you change your background, it's going to change the background on every page, so please be careful of that. You've got a few options here. You can drop a photo and put back there, and you can place graphics. You can change the color. I think we've looked at that before. Sorry, background color. Let me choose that. So if you want to make a black background, you can do that. Again, you've got all the different garish colors of the rainbow that you can put in place. Let's go back to black. But there are a couple of preset built-in ones here. So for photos, you see this one. Let's say this is a travel photo. Might help if I made that white. Sorry about that. Making it black, it kind of does screw up the display there. So for travel photos, you can see a couple of geographic type of images. These are not necessarily true maps. It's not like you can pinpoint and say that my photo was taken here based off of metadata inside of the photograph. These are just simply artistically created backgrounds that give you, something besides plain white or plain black. So you can choose any of those. Now let's come back over to photos and say that we want to choose our own kind of photograph to put in there. And bear with me, I'm just peeking around here seeing what would probably go with that. The truth is, nothing I have here would really go with this photograph, so we may as well just pick anything that we've got. So I'm going to drop this photograph over here, and suddenly that's my background. You can see the opacity slider. We can make it a little lighter. We can bring it up. You'd never want to really bring it up full like that because it just doesn't fit, but the default of about 20% or so gives you a good wash. If you're doing travel, for example, like that, you've got a background shot of a scene of a beach or sand dunes, or if you're doing a wedding and you've got a shot of a bouquet of flowers, those kind of things make for a good background. So you've got a number of options you can change. In most cases, I'm really not doing a graphic. I'm not even going with the travel or wedding options. As you can tell, I'm not really shooting weddings. It's kind of a black or white option for me, and it's just whatever sets off the photo. I kind of like this one on black better. So that's the end of this first section, taking a look at the features of Lightroom's book module. And the next video that we'll put out, we're going to go over some of the customization options and see what you can do to create your own settings. Thanks very much.